All right, welcome back, everybody. It's Tuesday night, which means that we've got another episode of Lions Roar Dharma Center's podcast, Talk Openly. My name's Jack Dufresne, and I'm here with my excellent friend Daniel. Daniel, how you doing?
Hi, Jack. I'm so happy to see you.
I'm
I'm
so
hope
happy to see you
I'm
too.
hoping to steal a little bit of your energy tonight. I'm super tired, crazy tired.
I'll
And
try and pass some on to
yeah,
you.
yeah, give it to me. I need some of that.
Yeah, yeah, good, good. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about kind of our role in community as people who are practicing the Dharma. I imagine we're going to talk about community in terms of Sangha, but also the wider community too. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's timely, right? We've got a lot of reasons why it feels important to connect with community right now. So I'm looking forward to this, Daniel.
Heck yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah, great. Well, I'd love to hear how you're doing. I know you're pretty tired. What's going on with that?
Oh my gosh. Well, so normal sort of waking up too early, going to bed too late with a bunch of stuff in between. But I've had an extra little shot of chaos added to my life in the last few days. So Friday night, I went out for a walk with my dogs, and one of them alerted to something underneath my van, right? And I was like, oh,
Mm.
maybe it's just a cat, whatever. Anyway, looked underneath there, and it was a little puppy. Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, it was a cute little puppy, a little Australian Shepherd, a mini Australian Shepherd.
Oh my
She, oh,
goodness.
she was just precious. And so, anyway, we brought her inside thinking, oh, someone's already must have posted a, lost pet sort of thing. But we
Yeah.
couldn't, we know our neighbors pretty well. We didn't know anybody who could have had one of these. Um, Anyway, so over the last several days, this dog's been with us. And we've been, oh, it's a mess. We already have plenty of animals and kids and all kinds of stuff, so we definitely didn't need a puppy in the mix. And
Yeah.
so, and it throws off the entire family mandala, right? So,
Uh-huh.
the cat's upset, the other dogs are upset.
Mhm.
Uh, and of course, it's a puppy, and so it's damaging things, pooping on things, peeing on it. It's like, oh God,
Oh.
you know.
Oh.
And then we ran into sort of a ethical quandary, right? So we were like, man, I went and took it to the vet. The vet said, no, there's no chip. No one's claimed her, no one said anything. So we were like, man, what are we gonna do? We got to do something with this dog. So
Yeah.
a family friend said they were like, oh, this is great. I'll definitely adopt that dog, no problem. So we started building a story around this and some attachment around the cute little puppy, right? Giving her a name. And I was like, I know these are mistakes, but it's okay. We're doing it anyway.
Yeah.
And then finally we got a fateful email from the owner who saw the messages online. Um, and it turned out it was like a backyard breeder, who was just
Yeah.
breeding them to make some money and had like let had asked a friend who's one of our neighbors to watch the property while they were away somewhere, and
Yeah.
then the dog got out and came over, and the rest there was history. And so there was this like all this sort of like letting go of the stories, letting go of judgment. There was all kinds of sort of like there were lots of arguments in the family about what to do with this situation. Like, is it okay? Should we like? Is it okay to treat the dog as property, or is it a living being? And so on
Yeah.
and so forth. So it was a big deal, but the owner finally came by tonight and picked them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got you. Wow.
So
That's
all
a,
is right with the world, but my God, like that just was the cherry on top of the cake.
for sure. For
I was like,
sure.
man, there's already plenty going on. I don't need a puppy. But what do you
Yeah.
do with the damn thing sitting there under your car?
Yeah. You gotta do something. That I
Yeah.
think, yeah. Well, and it's funny because I remember maybe what like 4 or 5 months ago, you
Yeah.
were having a lot of these kinds of like animal interactions. And I'm just so like there's got to be some kind of it's a pattern, right?
It's
There's
definitely a
theme.
pattern. There's
Yeah.
no doubt about it. My partner and I were just laughing about that earlier. Like, this is crazy. I don't know that many people who have random animals showing up like this.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
What do you think? If you could put, any wisdom to it, what do you think's happening?
Well, without tooting my own horn too much here, I the way I put it is those animals have pretty good karma.
Yeah,
Right?
because you're a nice human, you're gonna help.
Yeah, yeah. Like you're gonna get taken care of. It's okay. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't ascribe too much to it. I think it's just happenstance. And I also think it's paying attention, right? So in this case, I wouldn't have seen the dog out there, right? Like it
yeah,
took I was going out and about with my own dogs. And so that sort of attracts, like I'm animal centric, right? And so, I'm gonna be more paying attention to that. And when I do see it, I'm not gonna ignore it.
yeah,
So I think that's all it is. It's
yeah.
just, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and a little dose of, I think, it's okay to talk about our good qualities, right? That
Oh yeah, yeah,
that
yeah, yeah. I was just
yeah.
being playful. I mean, really, it's just a matter of these, like being open to it, and there
Yeah.
it goes out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Maybe again, speaking of the mandala, maybe it's a mandala principle in effect, right? Like there's some kind of a connection between that particle over there and this one over here, and
Yeah.
yeah,
It's just that's it. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. We can't escape it. And yeah, and good thing we can't.
yeah, yeah. Oh my God, can you imagine? Ah.
Escaping the
Escaping it.
mandala?
Can you imagine? That reminds me of the saying I heard one time. Everybody wants freedom, but nobody wants to be free alone in the sea at night.
No, that's right.
That would be being outside of the mandala, right? Like just
Yeah.
completely disconnected, all alone, not connected, no support, no.
Yeah, no, that's scary. That's a
That's
scary
scary.
place to be.
I don't
Yeah.
want to be that. I don't wish
Uh-uh.
that for anybody.
No,
Yeah.
no. Happy to take on stray puppies
If we need
if we
to,
need to.
exactly. Yeah. But don't get attached to the dang puppy.
Right.
Don't give them a name.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
So that's just a part of it. But life goes on. My meditation practice is um not entirely stable, but it's good. Like I'm pretty pleased with where it's at. I have noticed though, the last week or so, it's been more energetic. I
mm,
oftentimes talk about how I sort of tend towards the more sort of like sloth and torpor sort of aspect of things.
yeah,
But it's been a lot more energetic lately. And so it's been kind of fun watching my mind in that situation.
yeah, interesting. That is cool how it's like the mind will kind of just shift if we really allow ourselves to watch it. Like you're
Oh
not
yeah.
always torpor land. Sometimes
No.
you're in excitement land. Yeah,
Sometimes it's excitement land, and I recognize that like there's a reason why I lean the other way. I find that the energy is oftentimes it feels like a too big of a wave, right? Like I'm like, I don't think I can surf that. Let me just swim in the placid sort of waters, right?
Mhm.
But no
Mhm.
floating along here, right? Got to
Yeah,
surf those waves.
yeah, cool.
Yeah. What about you, Jack? What's going on?
I'm doing all right. Yeah. Trying to think. Gosh, it's been a week, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really been a week. I know last time we talked on election night, and I was feeling like really buoyed by our conversation, right? And I was kind of
Yeah.
feeling like, you know what, no matter what happens, it doesn't matter, right? We've got Sangha, we've got Dharma, we've got
Yeah.
community, we're gonna get
Yeah.
through this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I shut down my laptop at 8 o'clock and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna
Oh.
look at the results. And then I was just like, fuck. Oh man. Yeah, when I was looking at the New York Times and they had this kind of like meter where it was like, the percentage of, what they think who's gonna win. And it was like 87% Donald Trump. I was just like, man, it's over.
Yeah.
This is going to be another rough 4 years, and um, but I have over the last week, I've been really trying to center myself in reality. And because, I can get so ramped up in like the fear-driven, kind of future looking, what's going to happen? Like, when are the fascists going to come and like take all of us
Yeah.
away?
When is the
All
boot coming from my head?
right, exactly. And so just kind of pulling back from that, I watched a Tupten Chodron talk. It was just a short one of the I think they call it the Buddha breakfast corner or something. Um, and she gave a talk, I think it was the day or two after the election, on just, when we really think about it, we have no idea what's going to happen, right? We've got a sense of what they would like to do, but we don't know if they're going to be able to do any of that.
Right.
And so, just like come back to what's happening right now, what is within my control. Um, I've got such a wonderful opportunity in the state where I am and the job, that I have to really benefit people. And so, yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I think the stuff with my relationship that I talked about last week is, it's developing and
Hey, you okay?
I'm okay. Yeah. I mean, there's rough spots, right? But I can really see how this is such a good training. Like this is it's really training me in recognizing that not everything is about me. And and that this, self I'm so attached to is yeah, it's not so solid.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a number of ways that comes up in this process. And maybe at some point I'll share some of them with you all and our audience. But overall, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Good.
surviving. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and in terms of my training, I think with all this the stress and the kind of like just how it's been a little bit of a disorienting kind of few couple weeks. Um, I feel like my training, my shamatha meditation, I'm really like kind of more centered.
Yeah.
There's this way that I know we've talked about it before that sometimes everything external to me can feel like really intense. And so then I have this kind of assumption that my meditation's going to be crazy, like I'm not going to be able to get it together. Um, but then I'll sit and it's like, wow, it's almost like because there's so much resistance um coming, externally to me that I'm, wanting to think about. It's like my shamatha meditation has something to work with.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's been interesting to watch. Um, I typically do just focusing on my breath, but I've also been working with some visualization as well. And even though I really enjoy the breath because in some ways it feels like easier, like I'm not having to produce anything in my mind. It's like I'm just kind of directing my attention. I do feel that I have a tendency to wander a lot more when I'm just focusing on the breath. But when I'm doing like a visualization, I really notice when I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, the Buddha's not in front of me right now. And so I think that practice is really important for me because it requires me to be a little bit more aware of what I'm doing, a little more vigilant, I suppose. So yeah, it's been an interesting week with my training. Actually, after our discussion Tuesday night, and after looking at the results, I ended up doing some Kala Chakra mantras, and um, something about that was really helpful. I think pulling back, right? Because Kala Chakra is all about, infinity, right? Like kind of unencumbered view, just completely encompassing view. And so being able to pull back, get a little bit of a different perspective, like a more kind of like above the mandala perspective
Yeah.
through Kala
Yeah.
Chakra. That was really helpful. So yeah, if anyone's like kind of looking for um, something to help you kind of cue in that way, that could be a good practice.
That's
Checking in
really
with
good
Tara
advice.
Chakra. Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank
And
you.
always Tara, Tara
Of
is
course. Yeah.
so helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found it really interesting. So I think I've been practicing a little bit of ignorance. Um, yeah.
Yep.
A little bit of like covering my eyes, plugging my, just like, no, I don't want to hear, I don't want to hear. And then I catch little glimpses and I feel sort of like, ugh, oh, I don't like this. I don't like what I'm hearing. But I had a conversation the other day with somebody where they were, saying the same thing as what you were talking about, where we really don't know what the future holds, right? And even though this feels different, right? This pattern has been here before where there's all this sort of like build up and like these sides that have to win and then there's like a winner and a loser and whatever, right? There's this sort of thing happens regularly enough and and that the big picture is bigger than any one of us can imagine. And that what I found hopeful in that discussion is not just this sort of like, well, we don't know, there's gonna be some good things, there's gonna be some bad things. But I was reflecting on how, if we really do believe in Buddha nature, and we really do believe that everyone is part of that, right? That everyone has that as their fundamental nature, then it does have it offers this sort of hopeful, not like, oh, everything's going to be all right and you can just sit back on your laurels. Not that, but
Mhm.
rather that in this giant like mandala, this giant system, this giant interconnected thing, that fundamentally underneath it is just
Yeah.
goodness all the way through, right? And even though, there's all kinds of obstacles and all kinds of challenges and, things that are going to be unpleasant and all that, yes, yes, yes to all of that. Um, it's kind of hopeful to know like there are individuals who are really connected with that goodness, right? And
Yeah.
harmonized with it in such a way that they can help, right? It doesn't have to be all bad. And even those that we label sort of all bad, or we're like, oh, these are our enemies, or they are so evil and they want to do all this bad stuff. Actually, deep down inside there, they also want, right? They also want to
Yeah.
reduce at least their own suffering.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
Yep. We all want to be happy.
Oh, I want to be
Yeah,
happy. Yeah. And it
it's
doesn't
simple.
help. Although I gotta tell you, I had a funny thing where I was reflecting on how like so right the day after the election, I saw these cars on the freeway, with flags like we won sort of
Yeah.
thing, right? Like big, like it kind of like there was it seemed like there was like sort of this expression of excitement and whatever among some Californians. And at first I noticed, ugh, that kind of like, I don't like it,
Yeah.
like a bad feeling inside of me and some judgment or whatever. Then I stopped for a second. I thought, imagine how, like right now though, like how good that person feels. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
they're feeling pretty
They're really happy.
powerful. They're feeling right. They're feeling vindicated.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
totally.
I was just like, yeah, okay, all right. It was kind of fun just to realize, like, yeah, actually, look at them. They're having a good time right now.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I was trying to think a little bit that way too, where it's
Right.
like, I realized that a lot of people right now are actually really happy. Like I keep thinking about like, oh my God, so many people are like freaked out and
Yeah.
scared and all the
Yes.
things, right?
Yeah.
All the things that I've been feeling. But then like just as many, if not more people are feeling really excited and happy and all the things that you were saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. It is so
Fascinating.
interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of like I thought I could put myself in their mind. Like, what would that be like, if I could
Yeah.
feel that and also feel why they, that's how they, get happiness, or that's how this kind of
Yeah.
temporal happiness. That's just it's just wow. I don't know, and I would like to know.
Yeah,
For
yeah, you'd
sure.
like to be able to maybe not experience it in the same context, but to understand what's
Yes.
driving all of that. Yeah.
Yes, I really
It's
do.
easy for us to make all kinds of assumptions, but you can't make too many assumptions, generalized assumptions about whatever 70 million people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. They're
That's a
not all the
lot of
same.
people.
They're doing things for their own reasons and they're different.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Good. All right.
All
Uh,
right, that's
well,
enough of that.
that's enough of that. Yeah, enough election stuff. We got to do some Lojong. Yeah,
We've
train
got
our
to.
minds.
We've got to. All right, let me share my screen here, and we will hop on over to the random Lojong slogan generator on lionsroar.dharmacenter.org. I'm going to push the
Great.
big orange button. Are you ready for this, Jack?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, it's going to be a good one. I can feel it.
It always is, right?
Well, that's
Oh,
telling
great.
you.
48. Train in all areas without partiality. It's a good one. Let's see what Seichobu Choki Gyaltsen has to say, translated by Thupten Jinpa. It is stated that being angry and vengeful toward enemies and adversaries who are right there in your presence comes about on the basis of frequent interactions. Thus, from one angle, there is a real risk of losing your mind training in relation to those who simply appear repulsive, those who harbor ill will, damn it, those who harbor ill will against you, even though you have caused them no harm, and those you find undesirable, even though they harbor no ill will toward you. Therefore, single these people out for special focus and train your mind by perceiving them as parts of your own heart. Furthermore, because your spiritual teachers, parents, and bodhisattvas are objects of special significance, the fruitional effects are inconceivably grave if you accumulate negative karma in relation to them. Single them out for special focus and engage in the training.
I did not handpick this.
Okay, you promise?
I swear it's random.
Wow. So we were just talking about Trumpers, right? Wanting to understand them. And I totally felt like just a super repulsive, right?
Right.
Um, and to consider them part of
Your
my
own
own heart.
heart.
What would that look like? What would that even look like? I'm trying to imagine. I mean, I'm even just visualizing like a little Trumper with a MAGA hat, just kind of sitting in my heart.
You
My
know,
heart.
it's interesting. It's funny how visualizations pop up here. I had
Yeah.
my visualization was not one of bringing them into my heart in my center here.
Mm.
Not like that, but rather the visualization that occurred was this, like how my heart space can grow outward, right? So that it can encompass them, right?
I
Like,
like
and I
that.
feel like I feel like that's where, like the Lojong, Tonglen practice, right?
Mhm.
And training in compassion really comes out is that it allows our heart to grow bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is, I think this is directly related to what we're talking about with community engagement, right? Is that
Yeah.
it turns out that this transformation, of course, personal transformation, personal liberation is important, right? It's not the primary goal for us, but it's a critical component of the right. Can't do the
Yeah.
rest of it without that part. But how it grows outward, right? Yeah. So in the beginning, it's just me trying to be okay, and then it grows out and out and out. And we want to encompass, like to be able to bring them into our heart space or have our heart space encompass them, right?
Mm.
Like where they are, they don't need to come to us, right? Like we can expand and open up so that we can bring them in, or they can be there contained. That was sort of what popped into my head when I was reading this.
I really like that. Yeah, that's beautiful. So expanding our heart from, you know, beyond the kind of borders that we think, it is,
That's
and
right.
allowing it to, yeah, encompass
Yeah,
everybody. Yeah.
that's how I
I
feel
like
about it.
that.
And I
Yeah.
think I think it's good practice. I mean,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
fact that we can, the real risk of losing your mind training. Yeah, absolutely. When we notice the judgment, like how repulsive, like I was telling the dog story earlier, right? I had all kinds of feelings of repulsion towards people who didn't harbor any ill will against me personally at all.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's a constant effort that we have to put
Yeah.
into this.
Yeah,
What
definitely.
do you think about that second part though? Of course, so our spiritual teachers, yes, that one feels pretty easy. Parents, yeah, yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, I think we got them. I don't know. My parents, I'm not so sure that I give them special significance in this sense.
Mm.
I could work on that.
Yeah, I could work on that too. Um, I mean, what's interesting is that my dad is both of those. My dad's a Trumper, and he's my dad.
Yeah.
And so he's in like both
Wow.
categories for me right now. And so maybe that's why I kind of feel it like right here, like actually in my heart when I imagine, holding someone there, is because it is so close to me. It really is. Like it's my whole family, I think, has voted for Trump, except for my sister, um, and maybe some of my cousins. But so it's really close, right? It's like it's not
Yeah.
some alien thing where it's like these repulsive, far off, crazy people, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's my family.
Uh,
So I can kind of feel that right here.
I imagine that on the one hand would make this kind of practice easier, and on the other hand, much harder.
Yeah, yeah. Thanksgiving's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
So who's this? Who's
You
this?
should show up in a MAGA hat.
Oh my God. Don't even.
Avalokiteshvara on the screen.
Ah, beautiful.
Yeah.
How many faces does Avalokiteshvara have? Three
It's
or
either three
multiple?
or more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
I
imagine they are looking in all directions.
mm,
Mm.
I really like that. There's something very stabilizing about this image.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Very cool. All righty.
Thanks to random Lojong slogan generator for just
I know.
keeping us
I
on
know.
task, right?
Yeah, right. Like it really, there was some kind of, again, we don't know why things happen the way they do. I'm not so sure that there are random events in the universe. So as
Yeah,
much as our friend Dirk tried to make a random Lojong slogan generator, it doesn't always seem so random.
it doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah. You know what? I have to say, I found another random Lojong slogan generator. I did.
In English?
In English, but it's specifically for writers. So like creative writers. So they have this, it's interesting. They have this random Lojong slogan generator. You press the button and it comes up with a Lojong slogan. And then they have like a little short commentary on how it relates to the writing process. Isn't that
Will
interesting?
you send that link to me?
I'll definitely try and find it. Yeah, I'll find it
That's
again. Yeah.
fascinating. Okay, so we can
Yeah.
no longer lay claim to the only random Lojong slogan generator out there.
I know there's at least two.
Okay, so we have to accommodate this in our worldview
You
now.
do. You do.
Updating my system. All right, good.
Well, Daniel, we're going to talk about community engagement, and our teacher is big on community engagement and encouraging us to connect with the world around us, so that we can really, live in the Dharma and share through our uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Just how we approach life.
Yeah.
Um, So I was curious, you thought of this topic for tonight. Was there
Welcome back,
anything in
everybody.
particular?
Tuesday night.
Oops.
Always the same thing. Yeah.
Was there anything in particular that kind of led you to think of this topic?
Um, yeah, yeah. I got a little bit more involved in some administrative stuff with Lions Road Dharma Center.
Okay.
I've been
Yeah.
sort of resistant to it for a while. Like I participate, I contribute, but some aspects of it, I'm like, somebody better than me, somebody with more time, it was somebody else, right? I could do that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But anyway, it's it was an interesting experience that I had where like I oftentimes hear all these sort of like I'm going to call them war stories. They're not, but just where there are challenges that arise in the administration of a Dharma center.
Hmm.
And I oftentimes, when I've heard a lot of these stories, right? But I've always been like, oh, that's those guys. Yeah, whatever. Like, it wouldn't affect me in that way.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I had just a very mild, no big deal. I won't go into the storytelling, but just a very mild sort of where I had a certain attachment to like my rightness and wanting to be correct and appreciated and all of that. And then, I got what I felt was like a little bit of like, mm, tiny little obstacle, tiny,
Mm.
no big deal, just like a little pebble on the path. And man, I got all pissed off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, who does this person think they are? And goddamn, like, yeah. And it was really funny because all kinds of things came up, right? And it was, Jack, if I told you, it was the
Yeah,
mildest of challenges, right? Like
yeah.
nothing at all, really. And yet I noticed all this stuff come up. And
Yeah.
I thought, oh no, is this it, right? Like,
Good.
is this me entering into this, whatever, like into this new territory? And it reminded me, so there was this talk that Lama had given on entering the mandala, and there are various versions of the same sort of quote out there, okay, but this one comes straight from one of his talks on entering the mandala. Great talk, by the way.
Mm.
And he says, seeing the nature of mind is fairly easy. Seeing interdependence is fairly easy compared to administrative meetings.
Right. Yeah.
And I've heard him say that same thing in different ways, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
it hit me where I was just like, oh, I
That's
can
right.
I can see where this is the rub. Like no one's gonna sit around and argue about interdependence or emptiness or whatever, compassion. No, nope, no, we're all good. Even if even if we're not all on the same page, that stuff we're pretty cool on. We can have good discussions about. But when we start talking about doing things, making decisions, allocating resources, and that kind
Mm.
of stuff, then all of a sudden, like the real sort of, you get this opportunity to really kind of engage in a real world sort of way. So
Yeah,
that's why I was thinking about it when we were talking about what to talk about. Like it's related to that.
yeah.
Although I'm
Also,
interested, not just, like I agree with what you said at the outset of the show. My interest in this is really it goes it's local in the sense of like, how do we engage with our community even at a family level, neighborly level, within the Sangha, outside the Sangha, internationally, right? Like
mhm.
how do we engage with community at large?
Yeah, right, right. Great. And it sounds like, your story of this very kind of immediate, close to home Sangha kind of, was it an argument or just in your mind?
No argument.
Yeah, no
No, none
argument,
at all.
nothing.
No. But one of the things, so I own my own business, right? And
Yeah.
I have for a long time. And so I'm not used to anybody, like, people assume that if I say something that it's right. and correct,
Yeah.
right? And if somebody challenges, or not challenges, but tries to sort of point something else out, it's done in this sort of way that it's almost sort of, I wouldn't say it's deferential, but it's, where they're like, Daniel, maybe consider it from this other point of view.
Right.
Whereas in a meeting, of equals, it was a little different, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And no argument, no disagreement, no nothing. It was literally just like a tiny little point of not even contention. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yet but my point is that it was tiny, right? And basically, I was trying to say things were a certain way. There was somebody else suggested that there was more to it than I was saying. And then I was like, but you're wrong. And
Uh-huh.
I'm right.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And that you're wrong and I'm right. I was amazed to see that in me,
Yeah.
where I was like, wow, I didn't realize how much that means to me being
Yeah.
right,
For sure. Oh man, I mean I am very similar.
Yeah.
Um I will argue like the finest points of like an argument that I have. And it can alienate people.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
yeah, I can and so I've really, in order for me to be in community, I've really had to look at like where can I like let go of some of my ideas? Like do I need to hold on to them so firmly? Are they really that great? You know?
Yeah.
Like who can I learn from here? And that's been, part of my work has been in just building community in my home. Like I have two roommates and a cat, and there's community there, right? Where there's so much negotiation that happens
Yeah.
on like an everyday basis. And negotiating around dishes and food and all the things. And there's always just not yeah, disagreements, yeah, or just ways that we'd want to do things differently. Um, and so I've really had to work on that part of me that's like, no, like no, I know what is right. Because it's kind of an icky, kind of an icky internal state.
But it feels so strong.
Does. It really does. It really does. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I gotta say, I felt like one of those. I felt like when I turned out that I was right. I I had I had this feeling like those Trumpers with the flags. I was just like,
Yep.
yeah, you guys see this?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
disgusting, Jack.
It's pretty bad.
It's
Yeah.
bad, and that's kind of what we're getting at, I think, with this community stuff, right? Is that there is no what how does Lama say, right? There's no personal enlightenment, right? We all go together, sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what bodhisattvas are doing. That's what we're doing, certainly from a Mahayana point of view, trying to develop bodhicitta, this wish to awaken for the benefit of all beings. That sounds really nice. It's beautiful. Oh, it's so good, right? And like sitting here working on my mind training in my own personal life, so good, so good. But then, when we actually have to engage with the world around us, not just in the safety of of a loving sangha, right? But
Right.
like the real world, right? Like, and we have to engage with some pretty what we believe are repulsive people, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so and that's where the rub is, right? That's like we had this talk, you and I, a while ago, about the notion of the Sangha as a rock tumbler. Remember
That's
that?
right. Mm-hmm.
And I see it as there's like this, it's a huge rock tumbler, right? It's
Yeah.
massive. And we're all crushing into each other and doing this, and not just within the Sangha, right? So we have to learn how to do this. And I think that we have to start, like I was saying earlier, I think at this personal level. And yes, you gotta kind of work on some of that stuff. And then you begin to branch out, right? Until you're really able to be engaged and connected and contribute to the larger community.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that the training and then the practice, that's such an important kind of model there,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like We've got our meditation training where we're really focusing on our own, individual mind, and our own kind of liberation, but then also, incorporating everybody in that, which is
Yeah.
the Bodhisattva training. And so that's where we're kind of like in the gym, like Mama says, where
Yeah.
it's easier. We can visualize even sending loving kindness to Donald Trump and all of his
Oh,
flag wavers, right? We
yeah.
can, there's been times where I've really felt kind of genuine compassion.
Yeah.
And then there's the practice side of things, right? Where, like you said, it's kind of where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
Can I actually translate over what I've been doing in my training? Tonglen,
Yeah.
all these, important ways that we connect with the people, Lojong, into my actual daily life. And I find that, it often does not translate well because I'm still very much stuck in my misperceived self,
Yeah.
just thinking that I am this kind of independent soul being that's, going through the world without an effect on others and et cetera. And so um I think Mama's suggestion that we kind of keep these things top of mind all the time, like, imagine keeping loving kindness, right? Or thinking about loving kindness all day. What would that look like when we actually interact with someone who's not so kind? Would we
Yeah.
behave differently than we would if we hadn't been kind of reflecting on loving kindness all day?
That's right.
Absolutely, right? Like
Yeah.
we really do.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, like there's this real important thing about community engagement where it's like, am I taking my training off the cushion? Am I really bringing this into my everyday life? And not just in my professional role where that's my job is to be compassionate and empathetic with people, right? But when I'm at the gas station, I'm at the grocery store, right? And interact with people who get in my way, you know. That's community right there. These are all our people.
That's right.
Um, so yeah, I like thinking about
Mm.
that distinction. Mhm.
I appreciate that. And you're right. Keeping it sort of at the top of our mind is most important. That is the mind training, right? And I was thinking about, did you attend the talk on Sunday by the Geshe-la who came?
No, I was in group supervision for
Oh,
work. Yeah.
okay. Okay. Well, she was, we had this special visit from, I can't remember I can't say the name of the
Yeah.
nunnery in India where they were coming from, but um, these nuns came over who there was a like some ceremonial performance stuff that happened, but the interesting thing was this talk that was given by the Geshe-la, and she was talking about the 8 verses of mind training. And so I'm not going to read all of the mind training verses, but I'm just going to read one of them because it's directly related to what we're talking about here. It's verse 6. It says, "Even when someone I have helped or in whom I have placed great hopes mistreats me very unjustly, I will view that person as a true spiritual teacher." And what I found really interesting about Geshe-la's talk, what clicked for me that was so helpful, was what is it? Why is it that ill-natured beings should be viewed as a priceless treasure and a true spiritual teacher?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why is that? Well, it's because that's the only way, it's the only way that we can ever attain those paramitas, right? The
Mhm.
transcendental sort of perfections.
That's
There's
right.
no other way, right? So, in particular, the two that I feel like probably kind of stand out for me are, patience and generosity, right?
Mm. Mm.
Like those two perfections. How are you ever you can't you can't
Yeah.
practice any of this shit alone,
Yeah. Right. Right.
right?
And you can't just practice it with people who are totally amiable and
That's not gonna work.
kowtow to whatever you want, right?
No,
You can't develop patience or generosity that way. Yeah. Yeah.
no, no, exactly. And so given that that this is actually how we're going to accomplish our goal. And
Yeah.
so with that in mind, if we when we have these particularly charged situations or experiences in relation to other people, um, those are blessings,
Yeah.
right? Like
Right.
that's if we can, like you were saying, keep this loving kindness, this compassionate attitude at the forefront of our mind, right? And really watch it and watch for, watch for some perturbation. How do you say that? Right? Like notice when you start to veer off, then it's super duper helpful, right? If we can do that,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, I hadn't necessarily thought of it that way, you know. I mean, I had thought about like when someone is our enemy and they can be our teacher, it's like we're it kind of calls out our ignorance, right? You know, our
Yeah.
separateness. You know, those are the things that I've kind of thought of, but I really like thinking about that in terms of no, they're who we develop the six paramitas with. What
Yeah.
that is such a gift.
Yes, exactly. Because we're not going to do it without them.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. Dang, I know.
Right.
Why does it have to be that way?
Wha- Well, so this is a funny thing. I remember when so many people, including myself, I think, kind of have this view of Buddhism as this very sort of solitary endeavor. It's a personal, private sort of practice that, like it's
Right.
just about you developing your own, becoming a Buddha or becoming enlightened or something like that. And I really sort of romanticize the cave dwelling yogis,
Totally.
I knew nothing about them, right? But I
Right.
had this whole like, oh yeah, that's where it's at. Just say goodbye to everybody and everything. Go into a cave and attain nirvana. And that's
Yeah.
what I was like, yeah, I'm down for that, right? Come to find out, like, no, if you go, like, the whole going into the cave thing is really just like preparation so you can come out of the cave and you can
Yeah.
give back to the community.
Right. Right. Well, you know, the teacher Genlam Rinpa, who he facilitated the retreat that the book Calming the Mind came from. And so that's like the primer on shamatha that Lama wants all of us to read at least 10 times. And he was also a cave dweller. You know, I don't know how long he was in retreat, but he spent a long time away in retreat. And yet his kindness that I see, even just in the small photograph on the back of the book, I'm
Mm.
like, oh, this man is sending me love, even just through a photograph. Like I really strongly feel that way about him. And so his wisdom, his kindness, his love that he developed in meditation, that was all for us, you know? And here we have this book that has just been so essential to my training. You know, I don't know what I would do without it, right? It's so key to my training. Um, so I find that's true. That is very true. That all of our training, even the very solitary, it's all about others. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's mm, mm, about
And
all
us.
of us.
Yeah.
The whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. I liked it. I've had some, whatever, some visions or ideas, some thoughts and fantasies of um, I oftentimes kind of think about community in particular, I guess thinking about Lions Roar, but sort of this is true for the larger community as well. I sort of think of it as like a symphony, right? Like this
Hmm.
there are all these different parts that need to get played, all these different roles. Sometimes one musician will play different roles within the symphony. And I was thinking when you were talking, I was like, like those cave dwelling yogis, they're like the odd instrument that like hangs out in the back somewhere, and you're thinking like, what's that person doing? Like they're just standing, they don't seem to be a part of all of this. And then all of a sudden they hit that one note or whatever, and you're like, Oh,
Yeah.
whoa. This whole thing means something completely different now just because of that one sound.
Totally. I love that. Yeah, that everyone has a role to play in this symphony, as you say, that is community. And how are we going to live together harmoniously?
Hmm.
Because right now it feels like our symphony is like really out of whack, you know, like
Yeah, it's
we're
like a
out of tune with
middle school band or something.
totally. It is, it is. It's real bad.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you know, that's kind of like that is what we're doing is that you know, to carry the metaphor further, we're kind of tuning our instruments, right? Like we're
Yeah.
trying to come into alignment, right? We're trying to get harmonious so that other people can maybe feel that, right? And feel like, okay, I'd like to get there. I would like to also get into harmony with the people around me because it doesn't feel good to be out of harmony and
Oh,
out of sync with one another. It
no,
feels crappy. No one likes being in a middle school band,
no,
you
no.
know?
I have a visual of our friend Sue Forster. I've been to a few of her. She plays in symphony, you know,
Yeah,
and she's a French horn player. And I've gone to a few of her concerts, you know, and I have these visuals of exactly what we're talking about here, you know. It's amazing to see all of these different components and how they come together in this synergistic way, right? To like create something that's way bigger than its parts. None of them would have no one like if you just saw the maestro or the conductor or whatever and it was just them moving a stick around or whatever it is that they're doing and that was it would be meaningless, right? It'd be
yeah,
pointless. And to hear, you know, like to hear Sue play the French horn, it's all right, it's probably fine, but to hear it in this context, it's
yeah,
beautiful and magnificent.
yeah, right, right. That's really cool. Well, I wanted to, you know, in thinking about different roles and kind of like this symphony metaphor, I had been reminded about this tool that I had learned in school that's called, it's the social change ecosystem map. And I think it's something that, you know, even within the Sangha, we can kind of think about these different roles. And and basically it's kind of where you fit in, like how you move within the world, how you can harness your own natural skills to be helpful within community. And the
What's
different
it called again?
it's the social change ecosystem map, and it was developed by a person named Deepa Iyer. And so some of the roles are, for example, there's weavers, so people who can see, you know, connections between different people and ideas and movements. There's experimenters, so kind of like the innovators, the people who like invent and take some risks. Frontline responders, so people who kind of come in when there's a crisis and help out. There's visionaries, so people who've got like the bold ideas, who are very hopeful and dreamy. There's builders, so people who kind of put things into practice, you know, they develop, they organize. Caregivers, you know, obviously taking care of people, community. Disruptors, so people who kind of take some risks and shake up the status quo. That's also necessary within community. And I think, you know, there's a role for disruptors within Sangha as well too. There's healers, so kind of, you know, working on trauma and oppression, storytellers, the people who make story through art and
Yeah.
culture and whatnot, and then guides, so the people who teach, the people who counsel and advise. So I thought this was a really cool kind of structure to think about, you know, where do I like, how can I really
Yeah.
contribute? What's my role, right? What can I do within Sangha, within my family, within, you know, my workplace and whatnot, that is useful for people. So I just thought that was kind of cool.
I love it. I love it. You know what I was thinking of when you mentioned it. As you were going through it, talking about the different roles, I was thinking, I bet you could probably create like a map or a coupling of some sort between this ecosystem, the social change ecosystem map, and the five Buddha families.
Oh, that would be fun.
So I did. I dropped it in while we were talking. I dropped it into ChatGPT.
Oh my God. I'm very curious.
Okay, so you got the Buddha family. Those are the visionaries, the builders, and the healers.
hmm
This is just from ChatGPT.
Yeah, yeah.
The Ratna family, which is builders, caregivers, and guides.
Okay,
You got the Padma family, which are the storytellers, the connectors, and the messengers.
totally.
The Karma family, the frontline responders, the disruptors, and the builders.
Yeah.
And the Vajra family, who are the guide, the visionary, and the healer.
Oh, so
Isn't
interesting.
that
That's
fun?
really fun.
Yay, good use of technology.
Yay.
But yeah, no, really, that's the thing is like, we see this sort of terminal uniqueness as Lama talks about it, this unique me, that's these unique characteristics and everything as, like as something discrete and apart from, that's fragmented, it's individual, it's isolated, right? And that's pathetic,
Yeah.
right? That's like,
We got nothing if it's like that.
oh, how worthless is that, right? But take that gorgeous instrument, whatever that is, it doesn't matter what sound it makes. Bring it in, right? Work it out to make it harmonize with the rest of them, and we'll have a good time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because if all of us are, builders, or if all of us are
Ah,
disruptors or
oh,
guides,
yeah,
it'd be such a mess. We've got to have this diversity in how we interact. And so that is also going to mean that there will be conflict, right? Because we have different
yeah,
ideas about how things work and how to do it. But to see that, oh, I'm playing an important role in the way that this community unfolds. And that person is playing an important role. And so how can I find that our roles can work together, so that it's not just friction, that there's something that comes from that friction rather than just frustration, right? So, I think it's just kind of a cool model we can think about is what role would
exactly.
we
And
do well in?
right, and if there is conflict, what's great about that is that we have the Padma family, the connectors, the
That's right.
storytellers, the messengers.
Yep.
They'll bridge the gap, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Maybe the conflict is just to give them something to do.
Totally. For sure. Oh, well, Daniel, it's been a pleasure talking with you. This has been fun.
I'm uplifted. I was so tired. Now I'm like, I'm ready to go.
I know, I see you.
Yeah.
I
All
see
right. I
you.
think
You're pumped.
I'm gonna go for a run or something.
Nice. Well, everybody, thanks so much for listening. If you are able, please make a donation to Lions Road Dharma Center. We would so appreciate it. And Daniel, thanks as always.